So Paul is closing off his letter now to the Colossians, and he's given a lot of greetings to certain people. He knows these people. He's in touch with them. He cares for them. He loves them. And he's closing off with some personal greetings to a few. He names them by name, and people like Luke and Epaphras, and there's number of people that are helping him, struggling with him on their behalf, serving the Lord together. And there's kind of one name that stands out for me every time I read it, and I even wonder sometimes is why it's in the Bible, except perhaps as fair warning to Christians everywhere. Paul writes this. He says, Luke, the beloved physician, greets you, as does Demas, in verse 14 of chapter 4, as does Demas. Demas is mentioned a few times in the New Testament. He's a fellow worker. He gives greeting to people with Paul. He's right alongside Paul. He's a disciple of Paul. Imagine being a disciple of the Apostle Paul. Demas is working with him. It could have been a derivative for the name Demetrius, which might indicate he's probably a Greek convert to Christianity. He's a friend, a servant of Paul and of the Lord. But in his second letter to Timothy, Paul says these conspicuous words, "For Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me, and he's gone to Thessalonica." There's a deep sadness to this. Demas, in love with this present world. Maybe it was just too much. Maybe he saw the sacrifices needed to really be a Christian in the present world. And he's just like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. He had even spent time in jail with Paul. And he just gave up. But it was more than it being about Christianity being tough, because it says that his love was for the world. He just really loved the stuff of this world. He loved his pleasures. He loved the cosmos of the world. He loved the society and where it was going. He just loved the world. And his love for the Lord, his love for the world won out. And there's a deep, deep sadness to this. It's hard to grasp that people desert us. People abandon us. People leave the faith. There's a new word out there called deconvert. Deconvert. It's hard to understand. And Paul continues in his letter to Timothy, at my first defense, no one stood by me. Everybody deserted him. All deserted me. May it not be charged against them. There's a possibility that it might. But he says he stood alone and no one came to him. He probably felt betrayal. He probably felt alone, loneliness, like Jesus also experienced. Do you remember when James and John came to Jesus and said, "Can we sit by you in your kingdom? Like one on the left, one on the right, you, me, and him, my bro." And Jesus basically said to them, he asked him a question. He goes, "Can you drink the cup I drink?" "Oh, yeah, of course we can." And he said, "You will." They probably wondered, what do you mean by that? You will. And they did. What's in the cup of Christ? Betrayal is in the cup of Christ. You want to become more like Christ? You're going to suffer some betrayal. Loneliness was in the cup of Christ. You want to be more like Christ? You'll experience some loneliness. Some people will desert you. Pain is in the cup of Christ. Are you willing to drink the cup of Christ? There's sadness in the cup of Christ, but there's great joy too. Jesus was known as a man of sorrows, but he also entered into the joy of a wedding. He also, it says in the Gospels, that he leapt with joy. He rejoiced to see people healed. He entered into the rejoicing of others. He was sorrowful, but always rejoicing. Paul knew that as well. Because he knew the joy, the deep inner joy that Father was in control. In fact, it says that because of the joy set before him, Christ endured the cross. A man of sorrows, yes, but full of joy. He knew some things. Paul goes on to finish off in his letter to Timothy, 2 Timothy 4. It says this, that the Lord stood by me. Even though everybody deserted me, the Lord stood by me, strengthened me, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed and all the Gentiles might hear it. And so I was rescued from the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil deed and bring me safely into his heavenly kingdom. Ah, to him be glory forever and ever. Amen. And you know what? We can trust him to do the same for us as well. He will never leave us nor forsake us, and he will bring us safely home.